This train is from New Delhi to Sri Mata Vaishno Devi Katra.
I'm here at the train station in Varanasi, and I'm really excited about what we're doing today. We're going to be going from Varanasi to Delhi on the highest speed train in India. It's a brand new train called the VANDE BHARAT Express, train number 22435.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Questioning Mind. I am very honored to have with me today Sudhanshu Mani. For those who don't know, he is one of the chief architects of the Train 18 Vande Bharat network. And it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you today, Mr. Mani. Namaste and welcome.
Namaste. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Certainly. I'm really glad we got to do this because this is a topic that's actually quite popular regardless of, political hue and color of anybody, because this is an essential need, and that's it's a rather disruptive event that, something like this happened in such a short time, all thanks to you and your team. You've also been the author of a book about the entire journey, and you've discussed a lot of events and a lot of pitfalls that go on in such processes. And I'm not going to ask you to discuss too much about that because I would request the viewers to go and buy the book instead and read what goes on, because I don't think there's any other book written about such things. So it's very important that you get a deeper view into this, but I will have several other questions about the process. So to begin with, in your journey in this sector, what do you think sets the Indian Railways apart? Good, the bad, the ugly, all of that.
All right. So this is a saga with many faces. So let's, if we start from the beginning. So what started Indian Railways was its colonial history. The Britishers brought railways to India. And contrary to many other views, which extol it or see it as a great development and so on, which it was, it is basically a story of exploitation of Indian resources and to help military control and administration of India by the British. That was the reason for bringing Indian Railways to India. And then there were other reasons like it made money for them, more money from passenger travel than transportation of freight, which is the reverse now. But all the same, as Indian Railways became, by the end of the 19th century, one of the largest networks in the country, and the speed of implementation was commendable, much faster, if I can say that, than today. So that's to the credit of the British engineers. It also transitioned in connecting, conveying, unifying. You would have heard of Gandhiji's travels in third class coaches of those days. And then helping in liberating India. So it became also a vehicle for freedom of our country in a way, and in a major way, I would say, a major contribution. And after independence, it has certainly been a growth engine, the lifeline of the country in many respects, and also a growth engine for the economy. So I should say it did begin with some dark chapters, but the railways also helped India reach where they did by 1947 and later. I would not go more in this, but I would strongly recommend the viewers to view a 6-minute YouTube video titled Dark History of Indian Railways, The Great IR Bazaar by none other than Shashi Tharoor, where he has covered this beautifully. And I doubt if any railwayman could have covered it better than him. Now, railways as such have for long stoked the imagination in a variety of ways. It has a In the beginning, promise of adventure, thrill of traveling to unknown places, whispered tales of the land and its people, harmony between man and machine. These are some of the thoughts and themes that mere mention of railways conjure. You can imagine, that iron horse
Mm.
streaming on ribbons of steel coursing through length and breadth of a country, halting at stations. And these are these popular psyches which are forged in people's memories.
Mm.
Indian Railways, on the other hand, I would say, this is my view compared to Western Railways, because I have served in Germany for 3 years and I know use their trains a lot. So, Indian Railways has a greater deal of romance, because through the window of an Indian Railway coach, you see this drama in vast fields, village roads, wayside stations, and so on, with the repetitive sound of the train in background. And that's when the magnificence of the machine, not only the magnificence of the machine, but the romance of this train moving through the Indian countryside hits you. What you see through the window is absolute, little joys, pathos, poignancy, trite and trivial, but at once moving, desolate here, crowded there, tender and robust, struggle, celebration, joy, pathos, indolence, struggle, grind, exertion, sloth. All this is what I would call the marvel and the magic of Indian way of life, which passes you through. And to sum it all, I would, you know, take help of some wisdom of poets. To begin with, in The Tempest, Antonio tells that travelers never did lie, though fools at home condemn them. Now, he didn't say it about Indian Railways, but I use it here. I, I quote frequently that these travelers, for whom the journey is the object, not the destination. That's the magic
Mm.
Indian Railways weaves you around.
Mm.
And what they see through the window is this fantastical view of India through the Indian Railways window, I should call it. And if you're not able to appreciate it, I dare say that you are cocooned in your internal conflicts and contradictions, which fail to see the this marvel and the magic. I would finish by quoting you some extract from a nazm by poet Majaz, Raat ki Rail. And you have to just picture it. Some tough Urdu words are those which I'll translate. डालती बेहिस चट्टानों पर हकारत की नजर कोह पर हंसती हुई फलक को आंख दिखलाती हुई को मीन्स माउंटेन फलक मीन्स स्काई
Mm. Mm.
दामने तारीख ये शब की उड़ाती धज्जियां तारीकी मीन्स darkness of the evening, just tearing it apart. दामने तारीकी ये शब की उड़ाती धज्जियां कसर जुल्मत पर मुसलसल तीर बरसाती हुई अलगरज उड़ती चली जाती है बे खौफ व खतर शायर आतिश नफस का खून खौलाती हुई. Algaraz means carefree, and Shaire
Mm.
Atish Nafas as a poet with a fire in his breath, and it stirs the blood of such a poet. That is Indian Railways for you.
My goodness. Well, those are some lovely thoughts, and I don't know, from railway officers to consultancy to poet, I'm to author, of course. You seem to have covered a lot of ground, so that's absolutely impressive, and I'm certain that a lot of viewers who came to listen to us here would not have expected such poetry in with regards
No, no,
to
no.
passion
Yeah,
about.
that it's easier to express. One is not so accomplished to express your thought. That's why you have wisdom down the ages, and I hope I have not taken you and your viewers off guard.
Oh, no, it's a wonderfully nice way to romantic way to be taken off guard, and helps us understand the passion with which the team has worked towards such events to make this part of the Indian history. But I will ask you, since you've worked, in Germany as well, and you have other experiences, international experiences with regards to railways. What do you think it sets? What is the difference in the Indian railways with internationally developed railways?
Okay, so essentially railway systems are same, but
Mm,
today there are huge differences. The reasons, perhaps during the course of our talk, we'll talk about as to where we lost out and so on. Uh, See, when we got independent, at
mm,
that stage, practically everything, all the trains, locomotives, equipment, everything used to come from abroad, mainly England. Overhauling and repairs, that was the work carried out here. Infusion of new technology with a view to manufacturing it in India was never the goal of the British. So you did not really have good manufacturing facilities here. There was a bit of elitism as such. So at that stage, and it continues today, is travel for the higher classes, if I may so. And then you had as many as four classes. You had the first class, the second class, the inter class, and the third class, which is quite ridiculous for a population when you divide your passengers in so many groups. It's like a reflection of your social order.
mm,
But anyway, that was what was there at independence, and it was corrected. First, the interclass was removed, and the second class was removed. We have only two classes, first and third. Third used to be wooden planks at some stage, which became second. Cushioned seats were provided, if I remember correctly, sometime in 70s, if I'm right. So those differences were, eliminated. But since you asked me about what's the difference with developed railway systems, is the first difference is that while we set up factories to manufacture in India, which were kind of current in technology when they were set up,
mhm,
like the integral coach factory in 50s, the Chitranjan locomotive works. But over the last 70 years, the potential of Indian engineers have not been exploited, and the stress has been on more of the same. So our trains have the same recall. Our trains have not really changed in looks. So that's about aesthetics alone. Then comfort in train has not changed. Then the speeds of trains have not changed. After the fastest train of India even today was introduced was Rajdhani. That was 50 years back. In a way, I mean, there is your train 18, Vande Bharat, Gatiman Express, and all that. But largely, the crisscrossing the country are Rajdhanis, which still move at the same speed. So we are far behind as far as speeds are concerned. Then the comfort, convenience of a passenger. Are you not asking for a five-star hotel to be built at a station? What does a passenger expect on a railway station? It's not a airport that you have to check in baggage and so on. You arrive maybe 5-10 minutes before the train time. There should be good passenger information, which readily, abroad, of course, you know all that in advance and it's never violated. But let that aside, at least very good information system which takes you to the platform from which you will get your train.
mm,
And then you take your train, basic convenience and trains. These are the things which are far more developed in the West than we have in
mm,
Indian Railways. Uh, These are the basic differences: speeds of trains, convenience in trains, convenience at stations.
mm,
Of course, cleanliness, which is a reflection of the country as a whole, which has improved. We will talk about it perhaps. But the largely the uh, even because even railways face a lot of competition from air and road abroad,
yes,
Indian railways were large part of this last 70 years were kind of a monopoly, which should have been exploited
mm,
even by increasing the fares at times. I'm not denying that. But we did not keep pace with neither in technology nor providing comfort to passengers.
mm,
Let me also talk about the freight. I think we have done better in the freight segment. It's just that our freight tariffs are higher than international standards. That's why our logistics costs are high, because we have to subsidize the passenger.
Right.
So that should have been tackled differently by improving your efficiencies, reducing overstaffing, and charging the passengers perhaps a wee bit more, so that
Mm-hmm.
freight tariffs could also be brought down. But in freight arena, we have largely not done badly. Although speed of freight trains also needs to be increased. There are other aspects which need improvement in freight services. I think perhaps when we go to your first and the other questions, I will come to that. So there is a big gap, undoubtedly, and it is closing, but at a very gradual pace, which will not do. It needs to be closed at a better pace.
Right, you've mentioned quite a few points actually. I think when discussing trains, a lot of the mainstream conversations revolve around speeds and bullet trains and newer technology. But it's very, very important to see the kind of information systems, the platform conveniences, station conveniences, etc. Because and cleanliness, of course, and that's going to take some time to change. Um, this is very important because even the best trains will have their stations platforms changed at the last minute, and then somebody has to scramble to get there. There are older people, disabled people who will not have accessibility in lots of places. There's no escalators. It's coming up, but it's slow. I will just say this about cleanliness, though. We were recently at a newly built station in Rishikesh, and my friends and I posted photographs from the station, and we tagged it as being in Switzerland, and it was quite easily accepted. It
Okay,
is a
great.
very nicely built station, and it's very clean.
Okay,
But
very good.
a lot of people did believe that.
Hmm,
So that was nice,
good.
but I think there's a very far and few in between. So
Yeah, okay. So that's nice. That's yeah, things are changing, and some stations are, as you said, Rishikesh. Well, I've not seen it recently, but good.
So one question that I have, so you've mentioned, I have actually a lot of questions that keep coming up. So with the freight segment, do you think that we've done well in exploiting the monopoly of the railways there?
Okay, so that also has two parts. So you see, railways at one point, let's say around in early 80s, decided that it's not going to carry loose traffic. So you load one wagon here, two wagons there, combine them into a train, take them to a marshalling yard, re-marshal, form a new train, and you understand. You say, I'm trying to book certain goods to Mumbai from here, but I can only load one wagon. That kind of trains used to run, but railways decided they would concentrate on carrying bulk. And bulk commodities are like coal, fertilizers, cement, food grains, steel, and they would always be carried in a complete rake of which could be 40 to 60 wagons depending upon the type of wagon, 58 wagons. So that helped the economy in that period quite a lot, because India was still largely a controlled economy. 80s, it had not started opening up yet. So it served its purpose, and the gross million tonnage of railways kept increasing. It was serving the economy well. After the country was liberalized and the road network started improving, these things started happening from 90s onwards. So you suddenly had big competition from road in respect of a lot of commodities.
Mm, mm, mm.
Many new traffic emerged which never thought of going through railways, because they first of all like door-to-door deliveries which railways cannot provide, or there was no interest in railways to carry them because of their policies and so on. And that's when the share of railways in freight in India started declining, from whatever it was, maybe around 85% or so at the time of independence, is reduced to something like 25, 26% today. So while it served well, as I said, for a certain period of time, as the
Mm,
country was growing at a 4-5%, 3 to 5% rate of growth,
mm,
after the economy started surging, railways should have looked at carrying other traffic other than bulk traffic also. This would need policy changes, it would need changes in the kind of wagons you carried, it would
mm,
need in building facilities to provide as near door to door service as possible. Door to door is not possible, but aligning with freight forwarders or other agencies so
mm.
that the yeah, or you build sidings where loading unloading are much better in larger terms. I don't want to get into details, but that dynamism to be aligned with country's requirement was lost for a certain period. It has started now. For example, now today railways carries quite a lot of automobiles in special trains
Mm.
built only for that purpose. Similarly, some other traffic is also being carried out. For steel, also some there's special wagons which have been made. There's a commodity called powder cement which are being carried out in special rakes. But much more than this needs to be done, not only for revival of finances of Indian Railways, but to help the country's economy also. Yeah, so we have done largely, we have done well, but more should have been done in, let's say, in last 10, 15 years, and a beginning is being made now.
Do you see these happening, these policy changes being implemented? I can't believe that you just sat here and gave so many, required changes. But if somebody like you could actually make it happen in 18 months when you did the Train 18 network, do you see the success of these policies bearing fruit in the
Yeah,
near or future? You do. All right,
yeah,
that's
things are being done. Many things have channeled. Private leasing companies or freight companies can have their own private wagons. There are various schemes. I mean, they can have their own trains. This started with containers in around 2006 or 7.
Mhm.
I would not say it's been a great success, but it's not been a failure also. There are some parties which have come up, and a lot of private container trains work.
Mm.
And similarly, for other commodities also, it's very much possible. Without going into the detail, there are only two requisites. One is, first of all, Indian Railways should not consider itself as a dispenser of favor of some kind, as government. Although it is government, although it has social obligation, it should view it as a business.
Mhm.
And viewing it as a business would mean you must address what the would-be client needs. You're making policies which they don't like doesn't help you. I mean, they won't come to you,
I
and
think
they
it's
have
fighting
options.
bureaucracy and government both in one.
Absolutely. So that empathy is going to serve everyone well,
Mm.
and some patience is required from private sector also, because in the
Mm.
long run it will be beneficial to them also if more and more traffic is carried out through railways. So, but primarily, yes, that that feeling of inviting business for
Mm.
railways in service of the country. If you don't like calling it business, fair enough. Government and for railways finances to improve, that must happen. And a beginning has been made, as I said, but more needs to be done. So I cannot prophesy anything here, but at least it's better than what it used to be. Well,
All right.
much more needs to be done, though.
Yes. Especially I think if you've discussed how the track systems are desperately lacking as well. Like we can come up with different kinds of coaches, different technologies within trains themselves, but the network itself, one thing is it's got lower coverage than the country needs. Another thing is it's not developed to carry a lot of speeds. So what else, the track system development would require?
Okay, so let me start with a clarification. What you said is very right. It's not kept pace with the development of trains, let's say. So you have trains of a certain capability, but the infrastructure to support that is lagging. But then you have to remember that infrastructure, especially track, matching overhead equipment for conveying electricity to the train, the signaling system, all these are massive projects, unlike building a train. They're more massive than that, and they more required more funds, more time, and so on. So it's not surprising that you have the trains but not the infrastructure. But now, having said that, I would still say that the pace required for upgrading the infrastructure has not been good at all. It should have been much better. You would be hearing of upgrading certain sections, primarily, I mean, diagonal and the quadrilateral, but primarily Delhi Mumbai and Delhi Howrah to maximum speed of 160 kilometers per hour. In service life, I'd been hearing it for so long. I mean, the first reports when I was in RDSO Lucknow were written in 90s and so on. But the final sanction to actually take up this work in earnest has come only in 2017. And there was a promise to complete it in, if I'm not wrong, I may be off by a year or so, in 21. And we are in 22, but I don't think this work is getting completed for at least another year or 2 years. So that, instead of spreading your butter all over the place and doing so many projects at a time, especially today when government is spending a lot of money on infrastructure, these projects should be taken up on what I would call war footing. I mean, if you have these 3,000 kilometers, about 1,400 this side, 1,450 that side, and so, which are totally suitable for 160 kilometers per hour, a large number of trains would be run at 160 kilometers per hour, and there will be a palpable difference in the way people travel and the way people travel. And that has not happened, and that needs more speed, certainly.
So we've seen these delays even with the latest Train 18 coaches tenders
Yeah.
being delayed to October from July. So I think delays being such a regular part of such large infrastructural projects, how then did you manage to disrupt such a sector with the best to, when they Bharat?
Okay. So let me see where to begin. First of all, okay, the Train 18 story is something I can tell you briefly again. But you see, let me begin with this my favorite lines from the Merchant of Venice. You have Portia
Yes.
saying that if to do were as easy as to know what were good to do, chapels had been churches and poor man's cottages, princesses' palaces.
Mm,
What I mean to say is, well, all of us, practically everyone knows what we need to do.
mm, mm,
But to do that is the crux. Now, it may not be easy, but at the same time, it is not difficult. All you need is leadership with sense of purpose, empathy, commitment, integrity.
mm,
Leadership with all these qualities can do far better than the government or even other sectors are used to seeing. So, uh, while one can always, one can always talk about the ills of bureaucracy, which I am the last one to deny. Uh, there are some, very good shining examples in bureaucracy of also of exemplary work having been done. Complex problems are solved by us or sought to be solved by us through more complex solutions. You will usually find that complex problems have simple solution. It's not the reverse. And that underlies the problem. First, we'll go a little bit into the problem because making fun is always easy, especially
Yes.
when you are making fun of yourself, and or more so when you can do it poetically.
Yes.
Okay, so you've heard of this. So दिन रात तुम्हारी महफिल में दिन रात की बातें होती हैं, कुछ बात नहीं होती लेकिन बेबात की बातें होती हैं, जिस बात की बातें होती हैं उस बात की कोई बात नहीं, जिस बात की कोई बात नहीं उस बात की बातें होती हैं, जिस
Sounds
बात
very good.
जिस बात में इतनी बात बढ़ी उस बात में कोई बात न थी, जब बात पे बात आ जाती है तब बात की बातें होती हैं. Well, I'm only trying to tell you is it may appear difficult, but
Mhm.
it is not as difficult. All it needs is what I told you in the beginning. So, 2 days back, I went to a book launch, a book called No More a Bureaucrat by one Mr. Anil Swarup, who was the Secretary to Government of India. And he was my college senior. And there is a chapter on Train 18 in this book. Now, Mr. Anil Swarup has written it not only about his experiences as a public servant,
Mhm.
with all its imbroglios, all dilemmas, all actions, and it's festooned with all these experiences. It's a bouquet of experiences, but also what he has brought out are some shining stories of mainly about bureaucrats, government servants, who have done in spite of the adverse circumstances in which they have to work, the kind of works they have been able to do to improve the situation. Sitting next to me was one gentleman who was one Mr. Chaturvedi, who is SP City, SP Vigilance somewhere today, but he worked in a district in Barabanki where the entire village, all the men, women, everyone was engaged in illicit liquor trade, illicit drugs and liquor. But through his effort of winning over the people and providing them alternatives as a police officer, he has
Mm,
been able to totally reform that village.
that's
And there
amazing.
are several such examples in bureaucracy. And the good examples are not brought forward because we all enjoy bad stories, including me. I'm not denying it. So kudos to Mr. Anil Sarup who has brought it out.
Mm.
Why I referenced is this. It's more and more about leadership than anything else. It's no good blaming the Sarkari workers and Sarkari culture and so it's up to these leaders to reform it. If things have become rotten, you have to show your iron hand and maybe throw out some people and so on in government. I'm not saying it's all about pandering to people's or this thing, but it's mainly about leadership. And I'm sorry I got lost. I kind of got lost in this question here. So we began with whether how bureaucracy can do things, and I think the second part of your question was about Train 18.
Mhm.
Is that right as to how Train 18 was done?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll try to make it very simple and short. Uh, so as I told you, this after independence, our trains had the same recall.
Mhm.
For 70 years, we did bring in some German technology, some AC coaches were brought in. But if you look at the image of an Indian railway train, what you would see 50 years back and what you would see today, to your eyes, you will not be able to discern much difference. That's the reality.
Mm.
That's the recall. And that always bothered me. As a child, I used to see some magazines, railway magazines, because I come from a railway family. And one would see saw Indian trains as they were, and one would see these trains from Japan and Europe and wonder when we would have trains like this. I'm talking of late 60s here now, early 70s. And this was the question all through my mind in my railway service also. So why it did not happen and all also I'll come back to you. What happened in 2000? So all in spite of all the romance and all the legacy and so on, this was a fact that in 70 years you had not changed the face of your trains. In 2016, around July, I came up for my most likely my last posting before superannuation as general manager. And usually, people go and choose a GM of a zone.
Mm.
Zone means a zone railway. It's a fiefdom, so you are like a feudal lord, and you have all these spoils of office. Or you can go to a factory. There are 5, 6 factories which are headed by a GM, which you people keep it as a second choice because the
Mm.
domain is smaller. So I requested to be posted at Integral Coach Factory, and because it was an unusual choice for somebody aspiring to look at the government seat of power,
Mhm.
it was I was posted there, and when I landed there, uh, this was a factory set up in 50s again, uh, dream of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to make coaches of current technology.
Mm.
That was the dream, never became a vision, and worse, never any matching action by railways. We just kept doing more of the same, more numbers, expansion, same.
Mhm.
In fact, the Premier Chow En Lai had come to ICF in 1950s, and he had written in the visitors book, which I show when I make talks and presentations, is that every Orient should be proud of this factory and come and learn how to make coaches here. And look where we are today. We go to China to learn from them
I
in
see.
practically every aspect of railway or whatever technology.
Mhm.
Now, here I was very lucky when I landed there. It was a large factory. It had become the largest in the world in terms of numbers
Mm.
under in one factory. So the platform was there. I thought, had the vision to do it. I was fortunate to have a very good team, wonderful team of staff and officers who had, the chutzpah to try and do something new, the audacity to do something new. Only the energy had to be channelized because they were, kind of bored, ennui all over their faces, doing more of the same. My job was to channelize them. So that's when we decided that we are going to build a train for ourselves, which a modern train, which was never done earlier because of departmental problems and so on. And when I say train, I mean a train set. Now, what is a train set? Is a train which has no locomotives, only two cabs at each end,
Mm.
and every equipment is under the board, so the entire train is available for passengers. You can pack a lot of equipment so it moves faster, and you can provide all the comforts in the train and so on. This is the trend for last 25, 30 years in the world.
Mm.
But in India, we had departmental warfare and so many other things, and nothing was getting done except talking and lobbying about it, or people wanting to import it and so on. But we decided, okay, in ICF, we are going to do that. I had the team. So there was some resistance and all that, bureaucracy again wanted, showed its face, and they thought I was just spinning a yarn, seeking publicity and so on. But somehow we got the sanction because the chairman knew me, and I kind of begged him almost to give the sanction, which we got. And after that, there was, there were some doubts as to we will spend all this money about. Because I told the chairman that you import whatever you want. Who am I to stop you? But give me sanction for two trains.
Mhm.
So we will spend 250 to 25 crores or so for making two trains. If it doesn't work, who will be the scapegoat? This was in April of 17. I said I am retiring in 2018, December.
Mm.
So if if this succeeds, you give the country a befitting train for the first time, then credit is all yours. If we fail, then you can discredit me with everything. I would be retiring, it would matter to me. This was one doubt. Then there were issues about how will we go about it doing it. So that's an important part. We have been importing technology,
Right.
and yeah, and so you import something and you bring in 20 numbers, then you bring PKDs, CKDs, then you start building here through the drawing specification documents given by them. Then you develop sources here. It takes 4 or 5 years. But even after 15, 20 years, you are still not able to make it to the standard they used to make. Why is that? Because the technology, as I keep saying, it's like a cliche for me now. Technology is something which lives in the mind and also the heart of the creator. That's not something you can transfer. So you have to create it yourself.
Mm.
You have to have ownership. You have to build your own, good or bad. You must start building your own. Otherwise, this net import of technology is not going to take you anywhere. For such a large company, you don't want to be a factory of the world. You want to be a large factory of your own product, not
Mm.
somebody else's product. So we said we'll do it ourselves, good or bad, our attempt, and everyone was excited. We did that. Everyone said, normally a project like this takes 42 months. If you do it systematically, 36 to 42 months. Go to a large company, that's what they would say. We didn't have the luxury because I had said that we must complete it before I retire, otherwise somebody else would come and close down the project. There was no directive from anywhere to do it. We went and purchased this trouble for ourselves.
Mm.
So we said we will turn it out before I retire. That means we'll turn it out in 2018 calendar year itself, which gives us 21 months from April 17 to December 21. God helped us with all the, when I say God, I don't believe in God, but that's some supernatural luck for us that all the glitches, all the hitches, the opportunities, failures, everything worked out, synergies worked out. People worked hard, burned their midnight oil, and so on. And we were able to turn it out in October 2018 in precisely 18 months. So we had already named it Train 18 because it had to go out in calendar year 2018.
Mm.
Lived up to its name once again as something which got created in 18 months.
Mm.
And rest is history. As you say, we thought we were just building a train. I mean, what's so great about a train for normal people? For railwaymen, fine, they could be excited. But somehow the love and appreciation the train got was unbelievable. And then we realized perhaps we have done something a little out of the box or out of the world.
Mm.
And yes, then Prime Minister started speaking about it as a symbol of aspirational and resurgent India, taking pride in something which was entirely Indian.
Mm.
And that still kind of gives us when the day we unveiled and the day it was tested above 180 kilometers per hour gives us me and my team members certainly gives us goosebumps. Uh, and it was introduced in, as you know, in 2019, early 2019 by the Prime Minister as the Vande Bharat Express between Delhi and Varanasi, and the next one between Delhi and Katra also came that year. So this, in brief, is the story of Train 18. It's all about a wonderful team. It's certainly about the leader, which is me, and some other leaders next to me, my other officers. But the team as a whole, one member take out one member of the team, and there would have been difficulties.
So you said that this was a breakthrough when it comes to indigenous manufacturing capacity and capacity building. How necessary is this? And in different sectors, you see a lot of naysayers who go about talking about importing being either a cost-effective option or a quicker option. So, what do you think about this with regards to railways?
Okay, so there is one view that gradually the world is going to be what, within quotes, people call a global village where sourcing of things would be sourcing from abroad would be something absolutely acceptable, and I have no quarrel with that. That's absolutely right. uh, the logistics are such that you can do it, but let's look at the flip side. uh, so we are where, let's say, Japan was in what, 40s 50s, right? They were copying all kinds of equipment and machines and components and whatever. Somewhere around that time, they started making their own products, and that product used to be called. In fact, it's a little earlier than 50s. Used to be called Japani mal, which meant bad product because they were copies, and then they were making their own, but they were not meeting the standards set by the developed world. And slowly making their own has brought them where they are today. Same thing with, you have heard of Chini Mal.
Mm.
Chini Mal thing is a thing of the past. China makes some of the most quality products today and their own product. Coming to railways, Japan was the first to introduce high-speed train in the world in 1960s. China invested to bring all the technologies, all major, you name them, Alstom, Hitachi, Siemens, Bombardier, all of them, General Motors, GE from US, they were brought. They invested heavily. They leveraged that huge volumes and money that they could throw about to do this. And within years, they learned so much that they started doing their own. Today, CRRC, the Chinese rail corporation, is the biggest in the world. And they are now even exporting to Europe, which was unthinkable even 5 years back, and their own products. Today, the government is investing heavily. In trains alone, we are going to invest, if we see locomotive and trains, upwards of 1 lakh crore in the course of next 3 years, which is far more than ever any investment was made. And railways are an important part of the economy. Government has decided that we will not look at its financial health. We will invest because it's good for the country. So far, so good. But having invested so much of money, is after 3 years, you still have a product which is not yours, but developed and designed by somebody sitting abroad, merely manufactured in India. It's not good enough for a country like ours. Even a small country, I won't name a country, look to your neighbors. They can invite somebody, throw that kind of money, get a factory set up, and start making trains like you're doing. It doesn't need any engineering skill from that country. But has to view itself as different, as some kind
Yes.
of a advanced country in the future. So, to that extent, building your own, designing your own is very, very important if we have to have global footprint in the trains market in the world. We have to take baby steps. It won't happen in a day, but it will also not happen if you merely, let somebody sitting abroad design it and you bring it here and you manufacture it here. That is not going to help. You have to take that brave step, what I call, your doubts are traitors, which
Mm.
make you lose the good you off might win by fearing to attempt. This is Shakespeare for you once again. So you have to take that risk and go ahead and do it yourself. And we can do it with this kind of government support, which is there. But the direction needs to be a little bit more modified. That's the important. I'll give you another example. For example, all these metro trains. Now you have functioning metros in 6, 7 cities, I guess. Okay, I can name them. So Delhi, Lucknow, Jaipur, Cochin, Bangalore, Kolkata, Mumbai, Chennai,
Mm.
Hyderabad. More than 6, 7. These are already there, and so many more are coming.
Mm.
But none of these metro trains, in spite of all 20 years history, you can call it as an Indian product. Merely manufactured in India, that's okay. Not an Indian product. We should have had an Indian metro train designed by us here by this time. So let Indian Railways, which is a larger investment and a centralized procurement, not distributed all over with different agencies, that must show in terms of an Indian product or multiple Indian products, and that will really take us far.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's hopefully going to happen, and I think you've been optimistic about it before. But there's been a delay, right? After those two train sets, after your retirement, we haven't seen a lot of
Ah,
progress, especially with regards to 2018.
yeah, okay. So that's a little sordid story, which I won't like to go too much into. There was, again, bureaucracy to blame. There were jealousies, and there were uh, maybe some venal intentions of importing
Mm.
uh, negativity. All that tried to derail the project,
Mm.
and they succeeded for a long time. This minister joined almost a year back now, the present minister, and he had seen through the game, to my understanding. and he put the project back on the anvil. It was on the anvil because the same people who were damaging also, uh, part of that group cabal, if I may say, they modified the specification to give the train certain features which were unnecessary. They're trying to fix something which was not broken. They were trying to give the train a bad name, like you give a dog a bad name and hang him. Trying to say that it consumed more energy, whereas in reality it consumed less energy than Rajdhani. Things like that. Uh, so all that also delayed the project because you were trying to fix something which wasn't broken. But all that is a thing of the past, and as you know, the third train has just been turned out from ICF. It's under testing and would soon go in service, and larger numbers are expected. Much There's a lot of hype about how many would be built in. They've been repeating that. There's no need of that hype. Uh, Even if ICF builds 2, 3 per month for say
Mm.
starting October or so, that would be a good job done. It'll give you 25, 30 trains in a year, and it will start changing the face of passenger travel in India significantly.
Right. You completed this in a very short time, around 18 months. Did that impact any of the outcomes that were initially desired, any part of the plan?
No. So as I told you when I was telling you the story, once we got the sanction, by the time we got the sanction to make 2 trains, it was already April of 17. And the right way would have been, if I had the tenure of 3 years, to take 2.5 years to build the train. They're faster than Europe and this thing because we work hard. But we didn't have that luxury. The team was worried that we would not even start manufacturing by the time I retire. We would have only made drawings and so on, and the project may get abandoned because nobody had asked us to do it. We had gone and begged for it.
Mm.
So somehow we had to do it in December 18, which was 21 months. Uh, so because of that, we had to cut corners. So we didn't work in an ideal way. We had to do things which normal engineering practices will not allow you. We were ordering components without even fully finishing the drawings of those components based on weights and so on. Ordering, not manufacturing, because ordering also in bureaucracy takes a lot of time.
Right, right.
And it could mean some 5% extra profit for the vendor or 5% extra or rather loss for the vendor. But we decided, okay, in the larger good of the project, you realize we are doing something great for the country. Either I take the loss or you take the loss, but you will do it. And many vendors agreed. In fact, in the whole story, the support of the industry,
Mm.
which supplies major components, was tremendous. I would say their contribution even more than ICF, because without that, the train would not have been built.
Mm.
So, looking back, yes, it was done in a hurry, so it had its impact. We could have perhaps made it a more quality product if we had time, which we would have liked to. And I certainly like that the third rake, which has come now after 4 years, must have addressed those problems.
Yeah.
Time will tell. I mean, I have only seen pictures and so on yet. Does that answer your question or something more?
Sure. What are some of the changes that you kind of look forward to in the newer
Oh,
batches?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'll give you a small example. So in Europe, so you will be surprised to know that in spite of those 700-800 airplanes that India has,
Mm.
the aircraft type of seats are not built in India. They come from abroad. We were looking for comfortable seats, and we said we'll go to aircraft chair fellows and get chairs from them. Then we found there were none in India. So said, okay, not aircraft fellows. We'll go to the European seat manufacturers and get the seats from them for first 2 trains, and then we will make it here. But in the process, we made a mistake. So in Europe, your usual train journey is 1.5, two
Mm.
hours, and so that seats, have a slide forward type of arrangement, not a reclining one. in economy class especially.
Yeah.
We
Nice.
got those seats, and people sitting for 6 hours, 7 hours in those seats, they really complained that seats were not comfortable. So I
Mm.
believe they have addressed it this time, because this was something we could have easily done, but it was too late by the time we realized it. It was an honest mistake. That's what it was. One can always say you should have realized it, but well, it was a mistake. Then, because of the hurry, the body of the car, the coach is because of the hurry, then it sometimes has not it does not have the close tolerances and finish that it should have for the interior furnishing to come onto it, which are called paneling and ceiling and roof and the flooring and so on. So the finish of the train, internal finish of the train, I would say was 80-85% of, if you say 100% is good, then we were near 80%, not near 80%. This was again because of the hurry we had to do. And I have heard that we have not reached really improved over last time, but I have not seen it myself, so I can't say which should have been done. There were other smaller issues, that lights used to go defective, the diffused light, the catering, the space was not enough. The glass used to, was a very good glass that we got, but it used to shatter. So we needed a shatterproof glass, knowing fully well that we have miscreants who throw stones and so on. So we must address that problem. The flooring was a very good flooring, but people dragged their luggages on the flooring, and the flooring used to get a little bit damaged. These were small issues which needed to be addressed, and I hope most of them have been addressed. I looked at the picture and I didn't like the flooring they have. It's the same old flooring that we have in LHP coaches, so I didn't like that. I would have preferred they go for a ceiling, for a flooring which was as good looking as we had and still not
See.
get damaged.
Mm.
But many of those issues have been covered, and many new features have been in terms of cameras outside, in terms of the kavach has been put in the kavach, is the TCUS signaling system, matching equipment has been put in the cab. So many issues have been addressed. More we would know as the train really comes into service and we start getting passenger feedback. I mean, it's no good ICF or me or anybody else patting our own back till the passengers actually give you the feedback would be more worth it.
Is there a feedback mechanism system? Oh yeah, I remember the SMS from IRCTC. That
Yeah,
yeah.
there is the feedback. If somebody wants to know, there's enough. People tweet, people
Okay.
have complaints
Right.
portals, and people collect feedbacks. And in today's active social media, even if Indian Railways do not have an active complaint collection system, there's no way the complaints would get can be put under the carpet. They would come out. They would come out. That's a good part of the social media, and nobody can deny that the mistakes that are made and come to public. You cannot deny them. They you have to face them.
So when it comes to pricing, there's a lot of issues with that have been raised about the higher prices that do not suit a lot of the Indian population. And considering that lower cost airlines are, they're having a good run in India as well. So what do you think will, is there a clash between the kind of people who will be traveling in such advanced
Yeah,
railway systems and the LCAs? Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so the train 18 Vande Bharat fares are a little higher than the chair car fares, right? Still, it's going full for
Mm.
last 3 years. Both these sections, it's almost full. Some at times it's more than 100%, which means more than 100% means on the same seat you have occupation twice, somebody going midway and then whatever. So, so what it proves is that if you give service, there is a paying public which would pay even a higher fare, right? Uh, Now, it's not just about the comfort in the train. It's not just the feel good of aesthetics, the looks. It's also about travel time. Now, if you're going to introduce so many of these trains and they still track infrastructure being what it is, if you're not able to cut down travel time, then for initial, novelty factor may last for some months, but people would not pay higher fare unless they get something in return. That has to be kept in mind while introducing these trains. You have to give value, and people would pay. That's the higher end passengers for you for Indian Railways. Now, there is this perennial conflict between the social obligation of Indian Railways, the lower class fares, and the higher end fares and so on. So I've talked about higher end. Let me also tell you kind of fare structure we have today. A little skewed. Uh, a rough analysis, it's not very accurate because that's the costing doesn't work really that way in Indian Railways, but only the AC3 and the AC chair car are profitable. Even EC second and the AC first are losing businesses. What does it mean? Yeah, when I say losing businesses, it means that we are losing money on these, which means in a way we are subsidizing these higher end passengers. So why run something which is subsidized for higher end people? As well as give them better service, but increase the fare, and if you give service, they would pay, but don't subsidize them. Make money there and use that money to subsidize the lower end travelers.
Yeah. Would
Now,
that work better if these would transform to AC3, more AC3 rather
no,
than?
not more, not more. It is something more than that, which I keep saying.
Mm.
You have to picture your country in 2040. If not 2047, I'm going barely 18 months, 18 years from now. So, and then you have to believe that India would be a near developed country at that time. That's the premise I have if when I look at my country. You are with me there?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So if that is so, then will people be traveling the way they do today in a developed country? They are your countrymen, and you carry them like like if I can say, like sardines or cattle at times. Will you ever see such a thing in a developed country? So it's no good blaming those people who don't have the means to pay. Then it's for you to believe that people will all travel in comfort. If not that Western comfort, all of them will travel in air condition. Look at the punishing climate we have.
Yes.
And how do we make sure that it happens? Okay, let's go income wise. So if you take your GDP growth at 7 to 8%, and if you assume that your population is going to stabilize around 1.6 billion, all right, and then you factor in the inflation and all that, you would still see that the average income of people would go up by 3 times or so. It's a very back of the envelope calculations I'm doing, which means I'm already picturing that every traveler of India would be able to afford air conditioned at that time. You will make everything air conditioned, you will make it cramped. Let them travel a little bit more cramped, put more people. I don't mind that, and designs are possible. Let me tell you, but in air conditioned comfort. Even for migrant laborers, if you still feel that they would be traveling in absolute dirt cheap ticket, run non-AC trains, but only one per route. But give everyone a seat. Let nobody be going standing or just sitting on a window and something like that. Right? So if you picture it, all you have to do is now design trains for that. And a coach has a life of 36 years. Reduce it at least 25 years, which means in 2040, I don't want these non-AC coaches. You should stop manufacturing them today. Why are you making non-AC coaches today? We still make 3, 4, 500 every year, although the government is saying everyone will travel by AC. But the matching action is not there. It has to happen if you believe in the India story of NAS.
Right.
I mean, if 2040 looks too early, talk of 2047, 25 years from now. Even then, if you want India to be like that, you must stop manufacture of these non-AC coaches today. And then when I said let them travel cramped, this recently they made this AC3 economy coaches. AC3 as it is economy is further eco, where they added 12 berths. I said it is possible to add more berths, nearly 100. So reduce the fare. Even chair car, you make them sit next. You have seen some, even in, I have been to certain Broadway shows in New York where the seats are very uncomfortable next to each other.
Mm.
And where you have paid upwards of $150 for that show. So make them sit, but let them not stand and charge them fare that is cross subsidized, but not so much cross subsidized because you put more people, you can have a more
Yep.
realistic fare. So these are very, very generic things I'm telling you. I'm no experts, but that thinking must start today, which has not started, unfortunately.
Right. I think building for economies of scale, especially in a sector like railways, is the A of the ABC, right? I mean, if you're thinking about the masses, so I would agree. But at this point, considering the fare revision, do you expect it to be changed according to what you envision?
So
See, he's
absolutely, I
going in
said,
that direction. Okay.
yeah. So absolutely, I told you for the higher end, give them better service, like in Train 18, and charge them more.
Mm.
You wanted to a comparison with the airline, so it's for you to sit down and see what would work. If you really get this 160 kilometer per hour, I'm not even talking of 200. And if you
Mm.
can, I'll give you an example. So if you can take people from Delhi to Bhopal, let's say in 4.5 hours,
Mm.
that's not going to high speed. That's with
Mm.
some,
So,
yeah, maybe 180 kilometers per hour train, which is very much feasible.
mm.
Now that would kill the air traffic between the two cities. 4.5 hours if you take them by a comfortable train. But there are other sectors where air traffic would emerge stronger.
Mm.
There is a competition, but for the country as a whole, you have to look at the sectors. And definitely, when you said yes, fares have to be matched, at least pay for themselves in higher end and make some money there to cross subsidize the lower end people. For lower end, yes, fare should be increased, but one cannot you cannot forget your social obligation. The country has not reached there. You have these poor people, you have these poor migrants who have to travel. So the India story of 15, 20, 25 years just lifts them out of poverty. But till that is done, you have to take care of them.
Well, I think that's a very optimistic outlook, and I really appreciate that you've brought that positivity in, not just in thought, but in actual action. And I desperately hope that other people follow through on your vision as well. Sudhanshu Mani, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and I definitely look forward to reading the book, which I haven't done so far. And I request all of the viewers to go and purchase the book as well. I will also link below the YouTube video that you've mentioned earlier on the episode. And thank you so much again for joining
Thank you.
us.